21st century, who are our next generation of programmers? When most people hear the word coding, they think of lines of computer codes running along the screen like in the Matrix, or how it's used illegally by hackers fictitiously and in real life to break into computer systems and cause havoc, or even how it controls the cute, good robots like Wall-E, or robots controlling us, such as in the Matrix. But really, what is it? According to the internet, the definition of computer code is the symbolic arrangement of data or instructions in a computer program, or the set of such instructions. Or really, simply put,
basically what you tell a computer to make it do something. So it's a common language between people and the computer.
Learning to code prepares kids for the world that we live in today. There are many types of professions that rely purely on coding skills, such as website designers, software developers, robotics engineers, and video game creators, and others that depend on it, such as the communications field, education, social media, and really too many to name. As a result, the need for computer programmers is arising exponentially every day. The Information and Communications Technology Council of Canada did a case study on the labour market outlook from 2015 to 2019, and it was determined that there would be a great shortage of technology workers in BC by 2019. Over 20,000 positions would need to be filled, 4,500 of those directly related to the computer programming and interactive media developers. If you talk to any hot tech entrepreneur in the Lower Mainland, they would all say the same thing. There is an absolute shortage of experienced and talented workers in the tech industry. The graduation rate of computer science majors has greatly declined since the 1980s. What is the reason? One possibility is that some see coding as a breezy ride to a lush startup job with a foosball table, bottomless access to food and drinks, personal gym located on site, and all the other creative perks portrayed in the media by the game developers and software programmers.
It's a pretty cool place. It's like showing up to Disneyland every day to work.
However, the truth is, coding is not glamorous. It's hard, and lots of people would find coding jobs tedious and boring.
Sitting in front of a computer and coding is not for everyone. Never will be.
Another reason the numbers have been declining is that despite some recent improvements, gender imbalance is still occurring in the coding industry.
In Canada, only 17% of undergraduate students in computer science and engineering are women. Many of them don't go into the field. Others drop out before they graduate.
A 2013 case study entitled Gender Differences in Bias in Open Source revealed that of more than 2,000 open source developers who indicated a gender, only 11.2% of them were women. In this same study, it was discovered that women's coding work was more likely to be accepted than men's, but only if the gender was not identified, in which case the acceptance rate was actually lower than men's. These studies are especially troubling in light of recent research results, which suggest that diverse software development teams are more productive than homogeneous teams. Researchers have been experimenting with new ways of teaching computer science with intriguing results. With these changes, there is hope not only to increase the males' interest in coding, but the females as well. As Nick Odson, Senior Vice President at D2L, said earlier this year, tomorrow's workers need to know more tech than merely just checking their Facebook feed. Fortunately, the BC government recognized this when Christy Clark announced in June of 2016 that $6 million would be provided to help connect students with coding. If grade schoolers require biology and mathematics in order to understand the world around them, then knowing the basics of how computers communicate and how to engage with them should be a given. The goal of the new initiative is to incorporate coding into the curriculum and not teach it in isolation. This will start in kindergarten through exploratory and purposeful play, and although the goal is to ultimately teach the coding process, while kids are learning computer programming, they are developing a lifelong skill set including logical thinking, problem solving, persistence, collaboration, and communication. But have we started too little too late? Too little too late. The Maritimes started the quest in 2013, with Nova Scotia finally making the commitment last year, with the intent that all students, kindergarten to grade 6, would learn sequencing and programming skills. Asian countries such as Vietnam are light years ahead of us. Neil Fraser, a software engineer at Google, stopped by 2 classrooms when he was visiting there last year, where he observed 5th graders doing exercises in loops using Logo that older students in North America struggled with, and 11th grade students that were working through logic puzzles embedded in a digital maze, which was an exercise that was not even attempted at a high school in North America. Early coding education is not just happening in Vietnamese schools. Estonia, the birthplace of Skype, rolled out a countrywide programming-centric curriculum for students as young as 6 in 2012. The United Kingdom has launched a mandatory computing syllabus for all students ages 5 to 16, along with her European counterparts, Belgium and Finland, with the Netherlands to include one very shortly.
It turns out the Finns have built on the Estonian school model. They don't teach coding per se. Coding is integral to everything they teach.
Australia is even jumping on the bandwagon with the Intel Galileo pilot project case study, where their DIY technology development boards were used by teachers and students of all levels to add interactivity and intelligence to everyday objects. One such result from this project was a design by primary students that automated garbage bins to ward off those pesky cockatoos in the schoolyard. Australia's goal is to have coding taught in every school by 2020. Are kids in North America becoming fluent in Snapchat and YouTube, while in other countries they are actually learning the skills to create these platforms? Media theorist Douglas Rushkoff states, "Unless kids understand how the platforms they use are created, they are at a disadvantage to those who do know how to build and take apart these platforms." So what does this mean to British Columbia, and why should we care? One expert states that exposing today's 3rd graders to coding may mean that at 30, they retain enough to ask the right questions of a programmer working on a language that they've never seen, on a project that they could never have imagined. How do we do this? Students are now being taught to lead with computational thinking instead of the coding language itself. Paul Gibson, a computer scientist who teaches programming at the university level, believes that the problem with programming in school was exposing to students much too late and in such a way that would not interest the student population. He believes that students need to learn how the applications they use work and can start this at a very early age. He tested this theory out using 4- and 5-year-olds, teaching them the foundations of coding and computer commands by using colored balls and strings to create graph algorithms, which basically is an essential component of computer science. He proved that before they could even write or spell words, they could learn about algorithms and computation, so it would be negligent to wait until they were teenagers before teaching them the foundations. Computer scientists have been warning for decades that understanding code one day may be as essential as reading and writing.
I always felt like if I didn't learn how to program, it would be like not learning how to read.
Many believe that learning coding language and learning a second language at school are analogous. Tim Cook, Apple CEO, states, "Coding is just another language, and like any other language, it should be taught at schools." Researchers, such as Patricia Kuhl, posit that there is a critical age for language acquisition and that children under the age of 7 have a much easier time learning a second language, and once they reach puberty, their ability greatly decreases.
What we see here is that language has a critical period for learning. The way to read this slide is to look at your age on the horizontal axis. You've done that. And you'll see on the vertical your skill at acquiring a second language.
Musicians learning an instrument at an early age is an example of this. And really, what is music if not just a form of code? So as educators, where do we start? Children want to learn how to code to create cool things, while adults are always conscious of the lifelong skill set associated with learning code that was mentioned earlier. Fortunately, there are a number of helpful resources available from websites, iPad apps, games, both online and offline, robotics, and community sources. And although children are a small percentage of the population, They are 100% of our future. So let's make sure that we provide them with the resources to be the programmers of our next generation. In closing, I would like to leave you with a video created by Made with Code that eloquently sums up why coding is so important in our lives
The
today.
world is made with tiny bits, with invisible stuff and weightless things.
The world is made with DNA, drawn together into tigers and cathedrals and snow cones.
The world is made with bits of language, letters and spaces and numbers, organizing nations and brunch, and love. The code to change is also made with tiny bits and bytes drawn together. To dig wells, to share a joke with millions, to get directions.
You are a girl who understands bits exist to be assembled.
And when you learn to code, you can assemble anything that you see missing.
And in so doing, you will fix something.
Or change something.
Or invent something.
Or run something.
And maybe that's how you will play your bit in this world.